Hey, hey, Higher Ed podcast. My name is not Joe Way, it's Britt Yenser. I am guest hosting this special series sponsored by Corbett. So we are going to have a conversation about digital signage and all cool things we can be doing on our campuses. And I'm going to have my special guests introduce themselves, let us know where they're coming from, and then we'll jump right into it. So, Kaleo, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, hey, I'm Kaleo Lee, the corporate sales channel sales manager. Normally, I'm out in San Antonio, but today I'm in San Jose. Yeah, that's just me in a little bit.
All right, welcome. And Travis?
Yeah, I'm Travis Burdick. I'm the sales support engineer here at Sony. I handle the Southeast territory, so I'm based just outside of Atlanta. I have a higher ed background. I worked in higher ed about 10 years, and before that, worked in broadcast and film, a little bit of everything. So.
Okay, well, a little offended that you left higher ed, but we'll allow it. And Steve, aka Chewie.
Chewie, I've been doing digital signage at West Virginia University for the last 12 years.
All right, great. So let's go ahead and jump right into this because I'm excited to ask you guys about interactive screens and the experiences that we can expect from them. And what I'm really interested in for our listeners is if you've seen any creative or unexpected uses of interactive screens that have really brought people together on campuses.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're always trying to communicate, right? So I think that with the interactive screens, we can get feedback quicker instead of like having to do a QR code or say, hey, say you saw this sign at an event. I mean, we all know on campuses you get kids there with pizza. But if it's they're waiting for an elevator and it's just a quick little like quiz, they can hit a button and know if they're right or wrong, and then you could take that data and then what do you do with that data? Does that become education for first year seminar classes? So I'm a big data guy, and how do we gather that data and then how we spit that data back out and use it?
And that's what we're seeing. Some of the creativity on the staff side of the house is a lot of people are getting into Power BI. Data is huge in the higher education space, at least from our customer base standpoint. And so having that interactivity and being able to drill down like you would at your computer, but being able to do it in conference rooms and things of that nature, we're seeing some of those creative ways that people are using that. However, on the student side, I will say it sounds popular, at least from the decision makers that we talk to, where we do tie it back to a QR code so that they can use their phones and not have to touch a screen. So that's where maybe I'm out of touch with the staff side of the house, but that seems to be the decisions a lot of the decision makers make for the students.
For me, I mean, there's quite a bit, but when I worked in higher ed, obviously we were using digital signage everywhere between all the different campuses and all the different buildings. And it was a way to keep all the, because we'd have campuses spread out. So it would be a one way for the students to know who had classes on opposite campuses, different events happen at those campuses. So it kind of encourages them to participate. But as far as the more interactive part of it, more recently, we've been working with TSI Touch to do these touchscreen overlays for wayfinding. But even more creatively with our crystal LED, which is scalable, where they put a frame around it and it's IR tech, so you can just touch the screen and it turns it into an interactive touchscreen display. We were demoing that with a bunch of different medical classes. And actually at InfoComm last year, we had a good setup with an interactive screen display setup where you could, open different websites and write on it and, just kind of endless possibilities for a teaching scenario or a hybrid teaching scenario to kind of maintain that student interest from afar and, locally.
Do you guys feel like screens being interactive foster more of a shared experience?
It's a great question. In the conference room space, definitely create that collaboration side of the house. That's where I'll see, at least our customers will tell us that's where they collaborate and kind of drill down together. But that's more on the staff side of the house. I'm curious on the student side of the house.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I mean, again, it's kind of a different, cool way to encourage people to come up and help and do stuff. And especially when You're dealing with, like say for medical, it was like a 3D scan or something, and you can zoom into it, move around, and whether it's even for the presentation or just the teaching part of it. I mean, it's definitely a shared experience for everyone, whether you're on the hybrid end of it, and you're getting to see how, a close zoom in to whatever it was that you're interested in seeing more of, or just the local aspect of it too, with the students' interactivity, and rather than zoning out somewhere because it's just another PowerPoint on the screen, you have an interactive PowerPoint, which at least makes it a little more engaging.
Yeah, and I think as there's more interactivity out there, I mean, everybody has an interactive screen in their pocket, and on like the VR side, not to go past interactivity on screens, but it's how do we touch it? How do we move it? And I think there's still like a little bit of a limitation there on, where your pinch and zoom is, and when you're looking at that technology of your touch, how many points of touch is it, and how minute is that to, you have to move this much, or you have to start here and go further out. So I think there's things that can get better with that, and of course it's the back end and learning how that is and how can we standardize that a little bit more, I think, across the space.
When you talk about how we essentially all have these interactive screens in our pockets, that makes me think about how widespread technology has become. So my question to you would be, how are you seeing communication tools that AV managers are responsible for being used in more dynamic, widespread ways across campus?
From like an end user side, like as a digital signage guy, anything that's throwing an image up, I think could be digital signage and should be digital signage. But we're still in that walled kingdoms in IT of this isn't talking to this one, and we can't get a feed from this to this and that, and it's got to be this special MUX thing. And I think once we start breaking those walls down and there's better APIs out there, and people start learning how to integrate that stuff better, there's no reason that your campus-wide communications can't be in every single classroom. While a professor is getting ready to start class, that the projectors are showing that campus-wide communications or that building-wide communications. And I think that's kind of like the real next hurdle on digital signage across campuses.
Yeah, I was gonna say from my experience in higher ed too, a lot of people work in their own silos. This college will have their way of doing it. This college has their way of doing it. And sometimes it's hard to get them to work together. This kind of helps push that along, I think, because it makes you have to communicate with each other. If you're like, well, hey, how do we get a campus alert, whether it's an active shooter situation or some sort of fire or weather issue, how do we ensure that everything is talking so the campuses over here or the college over here gets that notice as quick as possible? The digital signage has this information, the arena C-LED walls has this information, and that's incredibly important. So yeah, I mean, it kind of helps speed up that conversation as far as like, what do we need to adjust, or how do we get everybody using the same or some sort of device that allows for the same controller command or API to quickly get that information, to whatever system you're on.
Yeah, and for us, we're seeing a lot more interest in the like for us, we have an intranet style social media feed that's purely internal to your organization, and so we're seeing a lot more interest in that just because you can control it, right? So you can actually get a little more public with your thoughts and questions and feelings and communications without that being aired out to the public social media space. And then what's kind of cool about that is, like Travis has mentioned, being able to tie that into, we do hope that the customers that we do have that are rolling that out, we want to be able to piece that together with the rest of our solution, just because you can tie it into digital signage to desktop to mobile and all that fun stuff, and basically connect everyone. I mean, even if you're not on campus, we still want you to get that message that, hey, there's an emergency, don't go to campus, kind of a thing,
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like everybody's on like the bring your own devices, but until you can have bring your own devices that are still centrally managed by the university, it's really hard to get that. So you have like there's campuses that have multiple digital signage content, CMSs. They have the same CMS, but there's 5 instances of it. So getting that like centralized, and I think it really comes down to IT being bought in on your digital signage as well, and helping to manage and managing those services. I mean, I know there's people that like each school and college has their own IT department. Well, it's really hard to force all of those guys to do all the same stuff. And I think until you really, I hate to say it, but run it as a business and manage it all centrally, it's those are the hurdles that I think we keep seeing in higher ed.
Yeah, I kept telling this Chewie guy to standardize on, our product, but
Well, I was saying it's helpful too, though, because I understand that thing. Because every time I remember when I was trying to just get the school on board for Dante, and the hurdles to go through with the InfoSec team, just getting everything vetted. But also when you bring something new to the table, you're bringing them more work, because now they have to go through all this and vet this new item or new technology that you want to bring in to. So, it's, responsibility of like, Corbett and myself or, other companies to provide you those white papers and, whatever security concerns or information you need to help streamline that. So when you go to your IT department, InfoSec, hopefully they'll be receptive because you've done, research or homework for them to try to make it a little bit easier to be like, hey, here's the benefit if we can make these things talk together. Here's this new thing. Here's this NDI system, this Dante system, this, whatever. But it is a struggle.
You guys already started to kind of organically talk about the effect that centralizing technology has on a technology manager, but I want to offer up the space to let you hone in on that a little bit more. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of centralizing technology and what that can do for a staff?
I think at the end of the day, it doesn't like. I think people think that IT has to own everything that's connected to the network. And I think out there is the AV is IT and IT is not AV and all that stuff. Wherever you're stood on that side of the fence, I think as long as everybody's at the table and has those communications and everybody's aware of what's going on, is what is needed. I think, like you were saying, like IT is like, oh, we got to take this on as well, and we don't have the manpower to do this. And if we just kind of break down those silos Travis was talking about and just have open communications, it's going to be better at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah.
No worries. I was just going to jump in and elaborate. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that when I worked in higher ed, that was, again, the struggle. I was trying to break down those silos and maintain those communication gaps and have that centralized. But the other side of it, I guess you could say the con maybe to even centralizing everything would be, does that, just like how those individual silos, maybe you have 4 or 5 different colleges at one university, and 3 of them are doing very innovative things, and 2 of them just are like, this works, it's not broken, not gonna, it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it. Like, what happens if that centralized group, starts to have that groupthink mentality where it's like, this is our way, this is how we do it, this is how we've always done it, and then they just keep plowing through on that, and then you don't have that innovative push from the outside, or, so I like the centralized form to be able to have that streamline effect, but then I still feel like there needs to be some sort of separation to kind of allow for that innovation, or a lot of that's in your leadership anyway. Like if you have a culture of leadership that supports innovation and challenging status quo kind of thing.
And that's where I see most of the resistance, because the technology is there. I mean, most softwares are running in the cloud anyway, so you have that ability to unify at a centralized communication point. But a lot of us who grew up in AV, there's still that resistance of keeping things segmented. And that's kind of to Travis's point, as far as the leadership side of the house is, are you ready for it? I mean, yeah, the provisions are there, the roles and permissions and all that fun stuff. But, it's like, hey, I'm running this on my production network. We're actually touching real-time data, and they're not ready to allow other, I guess, levels to access certain database and communications. And so that's where it comes down to the leadership side of the house, because the technology is there to be able to do it.
Okay, so I can't help myself. I am the creator and host of my own podcast, Brave Space, where I typically ask questions like, what sort of advice would you give to this situation? And so what I can't help it. I want to know, like, what advice would you give to the older school technology manager who in their brain is like, no, it needs to be segmented. Like, what would you tell them to convince them they don't have to do that?
Yeah, that's a leadership thing. There's a lot of trust in that side. At that point, it's not the technology. It really is trust and enabling your people. It was funny actually. I was just talking about one of my former bosses. I know we all know him. I'm not going to name drop him, but one of my favorite things is he might not be the most technical guy, but he trusted us. So the fact that we can own our piece and help run that. That's where you see the most innovation happening is the guys who are running and getting to own their own piece of the pie. And so the ones who want the control, that's kind of where, yeah, just trust your people, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, my thing that, and again, this could just be my experience, but like, I've worked at a few different colleges, but and I've been talking to other people too. Sometimes we're just all busy and we have a lot going on personally. We have a lot going on business wise. People get set in their ways, and higher ed, sometimes you're a little bit protected. So you're like, you just get comfortable. So one thing that is good is to come back and to the plate and just be like, okay, what, at the end of the day, we're here for our students and our staff. Like, what can we do that's going to be best benefit, what's going to benefit them best at the end of the day? Let's make a list. Like, if we make this change or we utilize this, how is this change or this adjustment, or if we don't make a change, are we, shorting them any, are they going to not have the experience they could have had at this university or this college over here because they weren't afraid to take a risk and make a change and move with the times? At the end of the day, it boils down to that. Like, you're there for the betterment of the students and the betterment of and to provide the tools and everything that's the staff and faculty need to, make these humans better humans out into the world. So I think there's grounding in that aspect of it, and then going back from there, going like, okay, this is our goal. Which option 1, 2, 3, or 4, which direction we're going to go that we genuinely feel is going to benefit them best.
And I think you can get that with your interactive screens, right? You can do a quick hitter by the elevators, and then there could be a QR code like "Thanks for voting," and like take a QR code and keep going. And I think that on the communication marketing side of it is, you can't just market your X accounts or your Facebook accounts or LinkedIn accounts or your digital signage, because you're going to have people that haven't adopted all of those platforms. So if you truly want to get the biggest cast of answers is try to put them on all those places. Even you send emails to the students, it doesn't mean they're going to answer your questions or open up and click through that email. And to Kaleo, you're talking about trust, and it's when somebody says that the click-through rate is X and people go, oh, that's really low. Like, no, that's really high. Like, and educating the leaders that may have come up from a different side to where they're at than where you're at, and understand and try to tell them that, when they see a number that might not be great or they don't really believe you, take that time to educate them. Just don't be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And kind of bring everybody to the center of the table instead of trying to push people away.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I always like to pepper in, like, let's give people advice. That's why they come here, right? That's why we listen to podcasts, get a little something out of it. All right. So earlier in our conversation, Travis had mentioned the idea of alerts and an alerting system. And that is huge in higher ed. And it's unfortunate that we need to talk about it as often and as seriously as we do, but here we are. So how are campuses using AV and IT tools to ensure that alerts are going out to the right people at the right time?
Who's going to jump in first?
I think Chewie's going to be able to answer this better because, I'm 3 years out of actually working in higher ed, and, you're immersed in it right now. So as far as the best way and the current ways, but when I was when I was working in it, I mean, you know, the system was progressing. There could be anything said about positive things that came out of the pandemic. It could be working in that field, trying to get alerts out as fast as possible. Technology seemed to progress a bit better in the sense of understanding hybrid environments, and also that necessity to get, you know, students information as soon as possible. So, you know, we started utilizing triggers. I didn't do the programming. Programming is a little more my weakness, but I know we had, you know, automated alerts going out via text, email, digital signage, even audible simultaneously. One, the university I used to work at is also a military college, so they had, you know, a horn system and stuff, and there were just different ways of trying to get alerts out and testing that if and when needed. So it was all done for to be as quick as possible. So not always the quickest. Sometimes I would get that text maybe an hour before I got the email. It just depended, but it was getting better.
Kaleo, yeah, I'm going to throw you a softball before I say something. Is there stuff that Corbett does differently with alerts and multi-channel, omni-channel communications? I know when I've looked at the product in the past, there were some things that kind of like really kind of sparked me that you guys are doing. I don't think others are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the softball pitch. You know, I actually just got back into baseball, so you can make it a little faster. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're actually talking pretty hot and heavy right now with all of the West Coast. I think they just made it a law or a regulation or something like that. So it's definitely a topic that we are hitting the ground really fast, and some of the things that we're doing, being able to tie in, like you mentioned, from digital signage, being able to expand it to the desktop, right? So not everybody's in front of the public screens. Now you can have it at the desktop level, push it out to your mobile phone. It can be on the mobile desktop application or on your mobile push notification. It can be a screen takeover, whatever you want. We have ways to reach you. And to your point, we can also push out text and email, and, you know, depending on the network, I mean, because a lot of times even text used to be the fastest. However, sometimes when you're overloaded in an emergency situation, it becomes slower, and so that you never know what's going to reach there first based on the technology available. So being able to hit them on all angles is kind of the best way. What I do love about the digital signage that we're starting to get into is the metadata side of the house. You know, is the door on the left, door on the right? How does it open up inwards? Does it open up outwards? And being able to put those instructions. So in emergency, you know, we know drills and all that fun stuff. But when it's real world, you know, being able to have those cues and those instructions to help out, that seems to be a really big topic with a lot of the schools that we're talking to right now. So yeah, I appreciate the soft pitch, Chewie.
No, I mean, when we were looking at CMSs a couple of years ago, and it was, wow, this is really a cool thing, and it came back to like the managed services, like you can have the desktop notifications, but they have to be, those computers don't have to be managed to have that on the computers to be able to do that. And it's how do you get that adoption? And the thing that I harp on emergency alerts is that it's got to be automated. So our screens are automated. The WVU uses an E2 campus that sends out an RSS feed that we're looking at. Our signs look at, and when it sees it, it flips over. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's been pushed. It flips over. Some things that I think we forget about communication-wise as a whole is those endpoints. So if you're sending a message that's to text messaging, there are still limitations on that. Okay, now it's smart enough to make a bit.ly, for lack of a better term. But if there's like real issues, you may not have data. Like you might be able to get the text, but you may not get data. So now you can't follow that bit.ly. So now that communication was useless. So I think we still have to think about that. And I think to your point, when like desktop notifications, if you want to just notify this group, that all has to be built out. So I remember the first time I worked like security for a concert venue, and it was all these different color codes. And, you know, schools have them too. And it's like, you really have to think about every single situation and how that will work out and play out. And I think that's some things that we all forget about with emergency alert is like, oh, we can do it. Okay, but how does it actually work? And have tabletops and talk throughs and figure it all out. And it's daunting. I totally understand it's daunting, but it has to be done. Otherwise, you know, you look bad when it actually is going on.
What I mean, that's the way of the future, right? Like everything needs to be connected. It's all going that way. Chewie, I'm just curious if your experience is similar to mine. Like, are you a part of infrastructure projects? So, like, if there's a new building being constructed, do you have a voice at the table to say, like, hey, like, are we getting enough low voltage conduit to be able to future-proof ourselves for whatever cable feeds we need or wire feeds to keep all these things connected, or any possibilities? Do you get to be part of those conversations too, or?
I do not. Like right now, I'm under the comm side of the house. So which is kind of weird because we're provide a lot of the hardware side, so we're being liaisoned with IT a lot. And then a lot of it becomes like, I mean, the people that do classroom tech, right? What's the first thing that gets cut is the AV at the end because it's at the end of the project, right? Um, and thinking about like you're saying, Travis, like, okay, right now we want a door swipe here, or we don't have money for it now. Let's pull the cable while there's no wall, right? It's going to be way cheaper than having somebody come in and trying to fish wires down the wall later. I really think at any company, when you're doing new builds and renovations, you should have somebody that's a CTS looking over those plans. Even if that AV company or the architect has one on staff, you should have somebody on staff that can read schematics and do that stuff and ask questions. I mean, I've been in rooms where people are going over schematics and they're looking at the rooms backwards, and I was like, you're this is backwards. Like, um, so yeah, I think that double check is something to think about and think about the future. And I think that's where, like, not the pop Infocom, but coming up with Infocom, like, you got to see what's coming out there. And PoE plus, can we start doing screens on PoE plus so you don't have to run power everywhere? And then what are those limitations and future proofing and we're all getting crunched by budgets and stuff. But again, running an extra cat cable while there's no wall there is going to be way cheaper than running power and data later or relying on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I would say so. If there's any education leaders out there watching this, make sure you're including all your stakeholders when you have these projects. Bring them all to the table, because as you can hear Chewie say, like, it's very important to have.
Well, on digital signage side is, where do you put the digital signage? Don't put it on a set of stairs, right? You're supposed to be looking at the stairs, not looking up at a sign. Or, we can do video walls in any size, shape. Can the people that are creating that content, do they have the bandwidth to make that weird aspect ratio sign? Or are you better off just putting a 16:9 big screen in? Like, yeah, it's not sexy, but like at the end of the day, if you can't make content for it and it's not rolling over, I think the problem in higher ed is, I've said this for years, is that our audience is the same audience every day. So the content has to roll and has to change. It's not a convenience store that says buy these chips and we see the chip sales go up, right? And then that runs for a month. The content has to change and has to update. And that's part of why we put digital signage in, was so that we don't have to be putting posters up and taking posters down. And I think we need to think about that. And when we're in these projects of the weird aspect ratios, and we started as horizontal screens and we flipped over to vertical screens, partially for ADA compliance with interactivity. So we had more usable space in the ADA section than on vertical screens than we did horizontal.
And one thing you're kind of starting to allude to here is the experience, right? So I want to kind of wrap up this main part of our conversation in asking how you have seen a shift in how students connect on campus because of interactive or on-demand content.
Yeah, I guess I've been riding on the backs of these two. I'll start this one off. And that's where we're seeing a lot more shift in the interest on the mobile side of the house, that social media style feed. It's, students are interacting on social media anyway. So we're seeing a lot more demand because the schools are able to at least have some form of control to be able to reach the students and keep them collaborating in the right space. Rather than, do I have to push it on X? Do I have to push it on Facebook? Do I have to push it on Meta? Sorry, Instagram. So, yeah, we're seeing a definite shift in interest in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I would jump in and add to that. There's more and more interested with CLED for some of that need too, because the quality of that content and the way that message is pushed out it's as the technology gets better and the technology gets more efficient and more affordable, you can do, you know, a lot more with less. So if you're, you know, some of the different schools and stuff are shooting with, you know, nice 8K cameras, 8K capable cameras or 4K cameras. So you want displays that are going to allow that content and the color depth and everything that you're trying to push out there, because the color and the poppiness is what kind of gets the attention sometimes. The university near me, actually, they just put some digital signage walls, outdoor walls around their one of their main walkway areas. And it was, I think it's hooked up automated wise. They always have an update with all the events happening nearby on that campus. And I think it makes a big difference to that, you know, the show up, the people that are aware. Because I mean, again, we all get busy, especially when we were in higher ed. You know, you have too much, everything's going on, and everything's got a deadline. So you don't always stop to look at, you know, where the fun things that could be doing. But maybe if you're walking along, you see it, the signage is strategically placed and it pops, it catches you. You're like, wait, I've got 30 minutes to spare. I can go slip into this club meeting before I move on to the next thing. So definitely, you know, allows for more engagement.
Yeah, I think that I've always told people, like, you shouldn't be making content just for your screens. Like, that shouldn't be your only touch point. So I think we gotta get to the faculty, staff, and the students where they're at. So if it is on Instagram or whatever new app is that I don't know about, because I'm not cool anymore or never was, I think that's part of the problem too. And I think that's where the standardization of your signs as well is, you know, love it or hate it, but 16:9 is kind of where you're at. As long as you're making content in there, then you're good to go to push it out to all those different areas. And I think that the Canvas of the world and the Adobe Expresses and all that stuff is kind of making it easier in the AI side. Oh, I say to AI, of being able to like make one and then go, oh, I need it in this format, this format, this format, and it does it. It is really helping us create that content and being able to push that content. And I'm going to say another catchphrase that I hate is omni-channel, and really get it out to everywhere and everyone, where we have to meet them where they're at. And the digital signage I just see is like another hit over the head of, oh yeah, I got to do my FAFSA or I have to do this, because we should have been telling them in every way we can of what is out there and what needs to get done.
For any listeners playing a drinking game as they listen, Chewie actually said omni-channel twice, at least twice. It was recording.
Bingo. We're playing bingo, are we?
All right. Well, did we miss anything? Is there anything that you guys wanted to make sure we covered that we didn't before we move on to the rapid round?
I think one of the hurdles that I see in a lot of digital signage installations is ADA compliance. I know it can be a touchy subject where we're at right now, and I kind of alluded to that earlier about vertical screens versus horizontal screens. So just being aware of what is out there and what those limitations are, and you know, I don't know if we can necessarily, I haven't seen anybody out there that has a headphone jack on all their screens that you can plug in and have it, you know, screen read to you. And I think part of that is the technology in our pockets of, you know, there's apps that can help those people that need that. And putting that information in multiple places, like you're pulling a calendar feed, there's another way for them to get that information, but making sure they know where that information is to get as well. The ADA compliance on touch, if you can come straight up to it, is below 48 inches but above 18, and then nothing can stick out more than 4 inches from the wall, like in a hallway. And I see it all the time, and I'm like, wow, this is a huge venue, or this is blah blah blah. And you're like, how? Not how they get away with it, but how do they miss this? And it kind of goes back to you, Travis, about talking about like when a project's coming in, like, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, is something that we all should be aware of and all care about.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about the proactivity on the ADA compliance. Not only that, but bilingual ADA compliance too. Yeah, with our commencement ceremonies and stuff, we had you know, multiple screens going with you know, Spanish and English. But to be able to streamline that, and again, a positive thing out of the pandemic and that technology was whole, you know, how was it, you know, everything, like Teams, Zoom, everybody was getting very, very good auto caption built-ins. So, it was making it a little bit easier and a little more affordable, because hiring captionists can be expensive. It can, be a little bit of a barrier there. And, I would encourage people to go as far as, proactively making their athletics events ADA compliant. It's just the more you can proactively do it, the more inclusive you can be, then the broader you're going to, your student population is going to be helped in the system. They're going to appreciate that, and they're going to see that, and that's going to encourage others to come to your institution because you proactively provide these things for them. Yeah, Chewie, that's a great point, and it definitely often gets overlooked, and it's a super important thing that just shouldn't be overlooked.
Well, and when we show videos, all of our audio is muted except for emergency alerts. It's the only time it's automatically there. So we tell people when they put up a video that it has to be open captioned. The captioning has to be there. It can be fancy like you see in your Facebook feeds and all that stuff, or white text on a black box, but it needs to be there. And again, it doesn't always look pretty, but you could take the time to make it look pretty. And then there's a button to like restart the video or turn the audio on for the video at our interactive screens. But just kind of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes can go a long way on that stuff.
Yeah, on the SaaS side, we don't have to deal as much with the ADA stuff, but accessibility has been coming up a lot. And actually, that's one of the my favorite reasons why we do love working with the HETMA crew is a lot of schools feel very free with being able to reach out to us and tell us what they want. Some of them are telling us that they're doing it on their end on the content side, to make accessibility, the color choices and all that fun stuff. But also too is working with our team. We've been able to look to the future without having to trial and error it, see what's working for them, build it into our own. We're trying to tie it in with AI to kind of do that quick skim through, hey, this is or is not accessible, compliant, and all that fun stuff. So I love working with the HECMA side on that piece.
That was awesome. Thank you for that. That is extremely important to talk about. And I think, unfortunately, there are people who try to skirt around ADA compliance, and there are, of course, ways to do that. So I always appreciate when we bring it up in a serious way and encourage people to really take it seriously. And, it doesn't just benefit the students who need those accommodations, it benefits everyone. So always keep that in mind, too. Thank you for that. And for those following along at home, we did say AI again. So if you wanted to take a sip of something, feel free. And that takes us to the rapid round. So this is where I get to ask you fun, random questions. You are obligated to answer them, and I may or may not rate whose answer I like the most. The first question for you is, what technology do you either wish existed, first of all, or that you wish would just be better?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm waiting for the Matrix. Just plug in and get it out of your brain. Sometimes it's hard to get stuff on paper, and then you're frustrated. So I'm going Matrix.
Yeah, similar to that is while I don't know if I would actually do it, but I would love for that neural chip to just in there, process, publish, done. It's
we said AI, so I'm going for the open sourced AI powered farming solutions.
Ooh.
So that we can have healthier food, fresh water, cultivated, provided at low to no cost for everyone. That would be fantastic. And it's not out of the realm of possibility too, which is fantastic.
All right, that was the most altruistic answer, so Travis wins that round. And the second question is, what is one non-work related gadget that makes your life better?
Oh, mine actually ties semi into work, semi into pleasure, but it's my Meta glasses. I love the glasses. I need to take a quick picture. I ain't gonna lie, I'm very shy when it comes to like having to take a video of my kid, and then like so being able to just push a button, take a quick video, call it a day. Also, too, is it goes right to my phone. It does a great job. I go for my walks. People are just like, dude, I didn't even know you were walking. Like, this is awesome. So yeah, it's my glasses.
I'll go guitar. My guitar. It's my way to detox. Just pick up your guitar for a few minutes, play a little bit, and everything's good. So yeah.
So I do freelance camera work for like NHL, NFL, that kind of stuff. Baseball, and baseball's not my best thing and my favorite thing, but you know I work it because it's money. So I wear in-ears for that, and then I wear my Aeroplex headphones, and they're on, and I can listen to music while I work, and nobody knows they're on because of the sideburns. So it can click track for me and just kind of keep me focused.
Awesome. Very good.
Yeah, I didn't realize
All
you're
right.
wearing headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
I
what
wouldn't
would happen if the sideburns went away? Would we see them?
I don't know. I mean, the sideburns have been here since '99, so you know. My
Yeah.
kids actually asked me that the other day. Would like, you ever shave? And I was like, well, I just shaved. They're like, no, like all of it. So someday maybe. A lot of money for charity. I'll do it for charity. I'll do like a Netto pineapple pizza thing. I'll save the sideburns for a charity.
I love that. I love that. And then we can finally see that you have things in your ears. Like right now, you're hiding it from us. Feels
Yeah.
sneaky. All right. The last rapid round question for you is one that I am borrowing from Ryan Gray's The AV IT Amplifier, which is a podcast that is on the Higher Ed AV Network. And it is that your late night talk show hosts have a sign-off phrase like Letterman's thank you and good night. So to that end, what would your sign-off phrase be?
I don't have a sign off, but I always say when people are like, hey, how you doing? I say it's another day in paradise. It's kind of an upper and a downer at the same time, but it's a good catch-all.
For me, it's aloha and I love you. I love you all.
That's a good one. A friend of mine I used to work for, who's retired now, used to always say, "See you next time I look at you." I always thought that was a good one.
That is a good one. All right. Very good, guys. Thank you for humoring me in the rapid round. It is a Higher Ed AV podcast tradition. And this is the last official question. This is the hardest one yet. How can people contact you after this episode airs if they would like to do so? Kaleo, we will start with you.
Yeah, kaleo.lee@corbett.com or on X at Kaleo Iini. We just add a IINI to my first name.
Travis.
Yeah, just travis.burdick, TRABIS.BURDICK @sony.com. I'm on LinkedIn too. Feel free to add me on there. 706-300-1667. I had to think about my number for a second.
Chewie.
I'm at Chewie the Wookiee on every platform that I can get on with that. So you can find me anywhere basically with that handle.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. This was the Higher Ed AV podcast. Episode was sponsored by Corbett. Any opinions expressed are our own, and we're not representing companies or sponsors or all that jazz. And if you didn't like the opinions you heard today, there might be better ones next time. No promises.